this video is going to be on filling out and talking about information about percent change applications. Now, if you did not, I apologize for this being a little shaky. If you did not glue this in the exact same direction in your notebook, that's okay. We are going to be writing a couple things on the page, but I think you'll have room still to fit it in. So when we talk about percent change and applying it, there's a couple of different areas you're going to see percent change applied. And you can see along the sides here, discounts and taxes are one example. So in your open space, whether it's at the bottom, at the top, wherever you could fit this in, I want you to jot down some areas where we actually use this percent change. And when we do percent change applying it, we need to think about when do we have percent increase and when do we have percent that are decreases. So we may add to this list as we go along, but the ones that I want to add in here for you right now, percent of increase. So when is your value going to increase? And you're talking about increasing it by percentages. Taxes are one of those. Doing tips. We've already seen and talked about markups. But those are some examples of, oh, and I have one more that I just thought of. Another one would be interest. Interest is money that you earn on banking. Oh, another one I thought of, sorry, just coming to mind, is commission. And commission, and actually I think there's only one M in commission. Commission is money that you earn for, say you sell, you're a salesman and you sell shoes, you maybe earn 5% of your sales, or like if you work in a jewelry store or as a real estate agent. Those are areas where people earn commission for how much they sell. So it's a percent of what you sell. Now for percent of decrease, the one we're going to list right now is discount as like a general one where it's always going to be a percent of decrease that would apply. And if we come up with any more as we go along, we'll add those in. But we'll come back to this in a minute. But what we want to start with here is some examples. So it says an $80 watch has a 7% tax. Find the total cost. We're going to talk about here is two methods of finding percent change and actually applying it to a situation. So if it's a 7% tax, we know that our value, what we're going to be paying is going to be a higher amount than 80. So it's one way we can make sense of our final answers, thinking about do we want our numbers to be bigger or smaller, and making sure that they follow suit. So when we talk about finding the tax here, we want to increase our cost of $80 by 7%. So like if you think about when you go to the store and you look at your receipt, after you've paid, you have the tax, it'll say like your subtotal and then your tax, and then it'll have your final total. So we want to find this tax, we're going to say we're going to figure out what 7% of $80 is, and then we're going to add it on to our total. So method one of doing this process is exactly that. And we're going to do this using the equation method. So we're going to do 70% of $80, or sorry, not 70%, 7% of $80. So we want to take our percent and we're going to use it. We're going to say 80 times 7%, but we need to change that into a decimal. So as a decimal, 7% is 0.07. So when I take my calculator, and I would suggest if you're not already, I would do the same on your calculator to make sure you see the values. You get that 7% of $80 is 5.6. So if we have that 7%, this is our tax. So this is our original amount. We're going to add on the tax of 5.6, and because this is money, we want to use 2 decimal places because that's the amount of decimal places that makes sense for cents, and we would get a final cost of $85.60. So that is one way to get our answer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the discount piece here, and then we'll talk about what's on the other side of your foldable. So we do the exact same idea for a discount. It's 30% off, so this is a discount. This would be a decrease in our overall cost. So if the $80 watch is on sale for 30% off, then we want to do the same process. We want to take our discount, so find 30% of 80. So 30% is 3/10, 0.3, 0.3. So if we take 30% of 80, and you can use your calculator, or you can think, oh, 10% is $8, move the decimal place over once, times 3 is 24. And then to figure out our discount, so this is the original price. It's a discount, so we're going to subtract it off. So our final price is $56. Coincidence that our tax was $560 and our new price is $56. Okay, so what we want to do is take this process, and notice it says in the middle here, or, and we have an alternative to how we can actually get to this value. So what we're going to do is method 2 here, and then we're going to get the exact same answers, is a second way to find this exact same answer. So if you notice what we did initially, when we did our, I'm going to get this back on the screen, we did our 80 times 7, we were taking 7% of 80, and then we added that number onto the original price. So when we look at the percents, how we can do this in one step is we can think about what percent are we now paying at the very end when we get to that 85.60. What percent is that amount of the original amount? And we've kind of alluded to this a little bit in the past couple of days with percent change. But what I'm getting at here is, if you talk about the $80 here, and what percent of $80 is $80, you're starting with 100%. That would be the original amount. And what are we doing to our percent? Because we are adding, or because we're doing a percent increase, because we're adding on taxes, what we're really doing is we're adding on 7% of our total. So we're taking this as our original amount, and we're adding on 7% in tax. So in the end, what percent are we actually paying? We're paying 107% of our original amount in the end, because we added on that 7% tax. So what we can do is we can actually do this all in one step. We can take our percent, our 107%. We can write this as a decimal, and you could do similar things with this, doing your proportions. But you're going to take this and you're going to multiply this by 1.07. What you'll notice is, and I'm just going to show you the calculator so you can see it, is when I do 80 times 1.07, I get 85.60 again. So I get, again, you want to do your context and make sure you have your units. This is $85.60. It's the exact same process. It's just, instead, I did it in one step. Why does 1.07 work? Because it's saying you did 100% plus 7%. You added on a 7% tax. So let's do the same thing for the discount. The difference is, though, when I start with my 100% original, and I have my 30% discount, so discount, the 30% is the part I'm taking away. So if you think about this, how much are you paying now? If you take away the 30%, how much of the original cost are you paying? So if you take off the 30% discount, what's left is 70%. This is actually how much you're paying, and that's what I want to know anyway. I want to know how much am I paying in the end for that item. So if I take this 70% and I say this is 0.7, I can go ahead and multiply 80 times 0.7, and I'll just prove it to you on showing you my calculator. If I take 80 times 0.7, it gives me that same answer. So 30%, so that was $56. 30% represents the part I want to take away. If I instead go ahead and take that percent off, and I'm left with 70%, and I multiply by the 70%, 70% is what I actually wanted to pay. So this idea of you can do either method, just so you know, you're going to be practicing some of this, and this is what percent, what number we're actually going to be looking for. So to summarize here, what you want to do when you have a percent of increase, in order to do the second step, you're going to start with your 100%, and you're going to add on your percent increase. So your tax, your tip, your markup. So for instance, just as an example, let's say you knew the company was going to do a 20% markup. You would say, okay, I'm going to start at the original cost. The original cost is 100%. And then I'm going to add on my 20% to get to 120%, which means if you're going to do the decimal version, you would do 1.2. So if I'm going to do a percent increase, I'm going to add that percent on. If I'm going to do a percent decrease, so discounts are the normal example, most common example, then I'm going to do 100% and take off that percent decrease. So tax, discount, whatever, you need to just put context to it first and decide, am I going to subtract from 100% or am I going to add on 100%? Okay, so the last example here is, what do you do when there is more than 1% change going on? So I have a discount and I have a tax. The answer is that the discount, and this is how stores do it as well, the discount is always going to be first. So when you have a discount with a discount, you can do those in layers. You do one and the other, but when you have a priority level, it's always going to be the discount first. So that tax, think about this, is 7% of any total going to be the same? No, it depends on how much you started with. So the tax is always based off of the discount amount. So you're going to do, and you can see on the inside here, you're going to do the discount first, and you notice this is set up so that we'll do it in 2 steps, and that's fine. We're going to do the discount first. So the discount was 30%. So in this case, with how this is set up, I'm going to find 30% of 80, which we already found before was 24, and I'm going to subtract that off to get that that's $56. So I'm going to do the discount first, find my discounted amount, and then I come over here and I'm going to find the tax. So how do I find the tax? If I'm going to do this in 2 steps, so again, this is like the first method, I'm going to take 7%, so 0.07, make sure you move that decimal place over twice, 0.07, and 0.07 times 56 is $3.92. If it's not 2 decimal places, because we're dealing with money, you should round to the hundredths. Make sure you're rounding appropriately. And then I'm going to add, because this is a tax, so I'm doing both things. I'm adding and subtracting, because I subtracted for the discount. It's a tax, so I'm going to add. I'm going to have $59.92 as my final total. So notice the tax for this one is $3.92 because you're taking 7% of a smaller number. So in the end, percent increase, percent decrease, we're just giving it some context, but we're trying to make it a little bit more efficient than we have in the past. So you're going to be practicing this on out.